name's Wheelie. Yeah.
I am directly below. Enemy scrotum.
What the F? Puzzle code in my head. Now it's on the walls. Everything is good.
Beginning, middle, end. Facts, details, condense, plot, tell it.
You heard it up top. Welcome back to Normies Like Us. And that's right, we are continuing in Transfor-May as we talk about the sequel to Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen, with not one host, but a combined host. That's right, we are combining together in a bigger, better, mightier Transformer host here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, I guess Decepticon again.
Nice. I'll be Mike Flap, everyone's favorite.
Oh, boo.
I'll be Jake Fire. I don't know.
Jake Fire.
Sure.
You know, Jetfire. I think there's one called Jetfire.
Yeah.
Right?
He's
Of
the
course
Blackbird.
The old guy. Probably my favorite Transformer up to this point that we've met. The old
Wow.
Decepticon turned
You know
good,
what?
apparently.
Weirdly, I don't think that's a terrible take. I think
why not? You know?
He has a distinct look, which is more than we can say for almost any other robot in any of these movies.
Yeah, and he's got a distinct personality that's not annoying like a lot of them, and you know he sacrifices himself in the end. He's a good guy.
He's an exposition bot, but you know he's got a lot more going for him than many other robots in this
He's
film.
just a
even.
cranky old man. You know, I can relate to that.
Yeah, totally.
Look, we'll talk about him as the character as we get going here. Jacob, you just picked, I kid you not, the most interesting Transformer in the history of Transformers to pick as your favorite up to this point.
Of course.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
It's blown my mind. This is a weird movie, the film we are here to talk about today. And again, we'll jump around with some more Transformers lore, toy info, animated series dump stuff as we did in our last episode. Normies, go back and listen. As you heard, continuing to do this for the rest of the month. We're going to keep talking the next Transform movies. Guys, first thoughts and impressions on this one. I got to say, a bad movie, a long movie, but to me, kind of the most Transformers-y out of the other ones, I think. So I'll argue that, but what did you think, Jacob?
Well, it's definitely a very long movie. I have to agree with you there. It took me about 3 individual sittings to get through all of it.
Amazing.
Because I just couldn't hold my attention for more than 45 minutes at a time, really. But there was fun parts of it. There's a lot of like stupid bullshit that just like the first movie. But like I think the first hour of this movie, you could condense that down to probably about 20 minutes. Just let's get going. But I think it does start to pick up after about an hour, and I was into it for from between an hour to 2 hours, and then the third act it just kind of lost me again. But
Very long.
It had a window for you. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, I haven't seen this since the first and only time I've ever watched it. It impressed me about as much as it did that first time, but I did have some interesting takeaways. Still not loving it, but there's some stuff here, and I think when we talk kind of the history of the production of this, there's maybe reasons why some of this feels kind of patchwork, and we'll kind of explain that more in the next segment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mike, this is the one, it's not on TV. When FX does these Transformer marathons, I swear to God, sometimes they go, Transformers, followed up by Dark of the Moon. And I go, no, there's one in between there. I would agree with you. This is maybe my second time seeing it since theaters. Joe, our other lovable host, is not here at the moment. But Jacob, you talked about in the last episode, knowing exactly where you were for that first Transformers episodes or movie. Such an event. I said I was a senior in high school. Okay, yeah. I could pinpoint it. Number 2, I'm in college with Joe. We're wrapping up set, where we're doing a student film. It goes long. For some reason, he had gotten to see the movie already. It's the middle of the night, we're wrapping. I'm literally just like, is it worth seeing? He's like, eh. And it kind of had leaked out that Optimus died. And I said, so does Optimus really die in it? And he said, do you want to know the ending? And I said, yeah, what's the ending? And he said, they kind of go to like Dr. Seuss Mountains. And there's like a bunch of puppets that talk to Shia LaBeouf. And I was like, oh. And a real sour taste was set up in my mouth to see this. And I think I ended up kind of not liking it at the time.
Gotcha.
For me,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say so. As much as I remembered about the first one, because of just the distinct time I saw it in, this one, for some reason, I don't think I saw it in theaters. I don't know when I even saw it. I think I saw it at some point on DVD or TV, but I could not remember like a single thing that happened in this movie. So it was all kind of new to me. Like, I think the one thing I remembered is like Sam goes to college and there's some wacky shenanigans. That's like, okay, I remember that. And his parents going to college, which is like, you know, a whole thing. But other than that, I was like, nothing from this movie felt familiar. So it was like seeing it for the first time, which was great.
Gotcha. I do remember where I was. You know, with most traumatic incidents in your life, you either bury them or you remember them vividly, right? And I saw this at the ArcLight in Hollywood, and it was almost sold out, right, opening weekend, and I ended up being front row, far right. So trying to watch this movie where you're literally having to turn your head to track the action doesn't help with kind of how incoherent. There's so many robots in it. And none of them are too distinct, especially in that climax. We'll get into it. So it was hard to follow already, and then it's even worse by how I saw it.
And there's a bunch of robots, but yet none of the ones that you really care about, right? Like the most, like there's Bumblebee's there, but he doesn't talk. You know, he just uses radio. Optimus Prime dies.
But we know from the formula of the first movie, Jacob, that they're barely going to cut to the Transformers anyways. So if I had dipped into this movie halfway through, I'd be like, man, they just haven't cut to Optimus in a while. You know, there would be no difference to if he was dead or not.
And as we'll learn, there literally is no difference. And if you haven't seen this movie that's, 10 years old? Yeah, spoilers after that bombshell.
2009. So
I consider this because I could not discern anything after the first movie where they land, you know, and I haven't seen all of them. But now after seeing it again, I just will call this one the Egypt one, because I remember the pyramid sequence from the theaters, and it's like, okay, this is the Egypt one.
But the first one had a bunch of like desert fight action,
but not
stuff
Egypt
too. So.
Not the pyramid.
But we said in the last one even, maybe there was finally the criticism of, is it too much 9/11 imagery destroying these cities? These ones, they're like, go to an empty field. It does not matter. You don't have to be around anybody.
That's right.
I think in my mind, I just mixed this one and the third movie up a lot. Like I confused those two. I think this one is the one with Megan Fox, and then the next one is the one that doesn't
without
have
Megan Fox. That's right.
But Jacob, for 10 minutes into this one, I kept saying, God, Leonard Nimoy has to show up here as the bad guy pretty soon. No, that is the third one.
That's the third one, yeah. This one, The Fallen, voiced by Tony Todd, right? Who great Star Trek guest actor. He played 3 different roles in different Star Treks, and he's great.
Yeah.
Also,
maybe we'll see Candyman eventually and maybe do an episode on it.
Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, they do go to the pyramids in this one. That is distinct. I'm starting to think that maybe these entire franchise could be a pyramid scheme designed to take all of our money. So how about let's just jump right into it and start talking the second of the Transformers movies as we talk Revenge of the Fallen.
Let's roll. I'm Optimus Prime. I'm not going to say my famous catchphrase, Autobots roll out. I'm going to yell out after I come back to life, let's roll.
And then fly.
You have to come home every holiday, not just big ones. You have to come home for Halloween.
Well, I can't come home for Halloween,
Well,
Mom.
then we'll come to you.
We're not
going anywhere.
We'll dress up. We'll be in costumes.
You
You'll
can't
never know
do
what's
that,
up.
Mom.
Would you let the kid breathe, for crying out loud? Come on, go pack. There's no way you're packed for a month-long trip. Come on. Chop, chop, let's go. March, young lady.
Oh,
I love it when you call me young lady. You dirty old man.
No, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Dad, whoa.
What?
I'm watching what you're doing, Dad. It's not a rap video.
It's just like a coach thing.
That was a really creepy move just now, Dad.
Look, your mother and me are really, really proud of you. You're the first Whitwicky ever to go to college.
No, I'm crying again. This sucks.
You're gonna be okay, Ma.
You know, it's just gonna be, hard for her to accept that her boy's all grown up, going out to handle the world on his own.
You okay, Pop?
Yeah. Mojo, no dominating Frankie. Get the hell off the couch, you filthy beast. See see a lot of that in college too.
Yeah, so Optimus Prime literally says, let's roll, not roll out, as Colin pointed out, and he's a plane, so he doesn't roll anywhere, he flies. You can say, let's fly, or something. Right.
And this is after my favorite guy, Jetfire, sacrifices himself, right?
Yes,
Gives him the parts that he needs to make himself super
Prime, Optimus Prime rib, I think, as it were. But, so... not the greatest writing of that line, and I think a lot of this movie, kind of talking about the production and when this was made, can be tied to the writing or lack thereof, because this is during the time of the big writer's strike in Hollywood.
Of course.
So there wasn't a script for this, like, famously. Like, they had story beats and, like, main kind of key moments. So Michael Bay is kind of just making this movie off of key story beats, which is why it feels like, all right, at some point, Sam Witwicky is going to have these visions, and that's going to tie into XYZ, and they couldn't figure it all out, and that's why this one does feel so disjointed. With that being said, I thought this was terrible from a structural standpoint.
Yeah.
And if the excuse is they didn't have a writer and the next ones don't improve, then they really have no ground to stand on,
Of course.
So there's a little bit of a scapegoat for this one, I'll say, at least.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, Mike, because I felt like a lot of the scenes in here, they just felt like improvised, like even the lines of dialogue where it's like the comedy, like over the topness, like every character is just crazy and like the scenes go on too long. Like I mentioned with, Sam's parents going to college, his mom eating a pot brownie and like having a freak out, like
hilarious.
Why is your movie 2.5 hours long and that's what you need to have in your movie? Like, is that what Transformers fans come to see in a movie?
Absolutely.
So like, if you're gonna make, there's no reason for this movie to be that long. Like, you could cut easily 45 minutes out of this movie and it would not. It would improve.
And the final battle is 45 minutes. Like, you tell Michael Bay is just like, well, I'll do these action scenes. It opens with this action scene, in Shanghai, but it doesn't set up that, say, the Decepticons are trying to revive Megatron, which all they needed to do was have the Decepticons in Shanghai say, where's the shard? We need to bring back Megatron. And then they're not just randomly attacked. Like, there's
the
no
fallen
connective
will
tissue.
return.
Yeah, right?
Okay, let me see if I have this straight. So, in the last movie,
Yes, sir.
Sam killed Megatron with the Allspark by sticking it into his chest.
Holding it with his bare hands for large portions of the final climax.
And it did not imprint on him or anything like that. Now he finds a single shard of it, which by touching it, it imprints all this code into his head, and then also it can be used to revive Megatron, when before it was actually used to kill Megatron.
Transformers, like it did in the last one. Jacob, you're missing a very key detail, which is that Sam did save his outfit from the last battle. He has not done laundry with it or donated those clothes, and he of course has that shard still.
Yeah. So, and this will lead to later. We did say, all right, so in the last movie I joked, all right, we killed Megatron, so our big bad is gone. I wonder how they'll continue the franchise. Immediately, they're just going to be bringing him back. So then we can presume that if Optimus Prime dies in this, spoiler, we already said it, he's probably going to come back to life at the end, which he does. So, like, no consequences whatsoever, first of all, in this franchise.
I didn't think about that, Mike. That is genius. In the cartoon, of course, there is no Fallen. Now, there is an idea of a council of primes, and that Prime is sort of a title and stuff. Maybe one of them has gone rogue. Because what the essential plot of this is, and what all good sequels, of course, have, is ancient aliens, right? Is that a billion years ago, these goofballs came to our planet to try to set stuff up. Turns out they were going to build a harvester to harvest the energy of the sun, which they can convert to energon, their food source. They were all on board with that. One of them was extra bad. Then they're like, actually, we're not on board with this. Fuck you, and they sentence him to die on this planet, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Now, Mike, you pointed out, Megatron is like the Darth Vader in the last one. He's this kind of cool character or whatever. Now he is even more like the Darth Vader because he has his own emperor that he's working for.
True.
Even though, you want Megatron to be the coolest character, and like Jacob said in our last episode, you want him to have that relationship with Starscream, who only gets like one groveling scene in this where it's like they're kind of hinting at that relationship.
Well, Starscream's like third in command now with the Fallen.
Yeah, but the robots just aren't characters, so you're never going to get that.
And there's a lot. Yeah. Well, Megatron even in this, like he's barely in it, and the Fallen is in it even less, which means Starscream is in it even less. Like there's so many stretches where we're not even checking in on our villains. You know, it's very bizarre in that way.
And a lot of the Decepticons that you see more of are just like, you know, personality with lists. You know, like there's the cat thing, and there's like the micro nanobots or whatever.
Let me say,
Yes.
I did finally get, you know, an on-screen representation of a Zoid, probably the only one I'll ever get with that tiger, which is cool enough. But then they're shooting like bullets, and then I keep thinking, so Rawhide, they're shooting rockets. Like, do Transformers generate munitions with gunpowder and shells? How does this work? Why is it not lasers?
I think about that when the Nokia phone is shooting missiles out of it. There was no fuel source in the Nokia phone that could generate missiles.
Is that parts of
how
your
about
body?
The scene where everything in Sam's house turns into a little Decepticon, and they're all shooting they're shooting bullets or whatever. How does
like
that
lasers
work?
make more sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Which is what the cartoon had. But anyway, that's a tangent.
But I want to go back to something you said, Colin. So it ties into Ancient Aliens, which I think was a pretty big thing at the time in 2009. There was the show on Sci-Fi Channel.
History Channel had one
History
too.
Channel, yeah. Which I thought was interesting because it reminds me actually of Kong versus Godzilla, because that ties in the whole Hollow Earth stuff. So it's just tying in real conspiracy theories into your movie.
You know, I love some Kong versus Godzilla, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, all right, yeah, we're just in this alternate Earth, and in the first movie, it's established that all of the technology we have was built off of finding Megatron in the ice, and now to expand on that further, there's ancient aliens in this version of Earth, right? And it's like,
and the reason they built the pyramids, not to bury their pharaohs, but to, you know, hide a giant laser that can destroy the sun.
Yes,
of course,
as we all know.
Mm-hmm. As we all know, the thing is here too to point out structurally, as we're saying, issues with this thing. We were, you know, Colin was telling us, so the Fallen was not supposed to take the sun from a planet that had life on it, and he does, or he plans to. That's why they kind of kick him out. All of that is like not told to us until like an hour and 25 minutes into the movie. We don't know anybody's motivations or why the villain is doing what they're doing until we meet Jetfire, you know, greatest Transformer ever.
Best.
So it's like it takes a really long time for you to understand what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me give the rundown on what makes him so unique. So I said last time, the company Takara, who will eventually become Takara Tomy, that make Zoids, Mike, was a Japanese company that made Micromen and the other one that I cannot remember what they're called, but Diacoms or whatever. Mm-hmm. These are two separate things of little robots that can turn into things. The two distinct differences are some turn in stuff with little driving seats. That's because in Japan you would actually get little drivers, because again, they're not Autobots or Decepticons. Some of them turn into household appliances. So a lot of the Decepticons that were Autobots were Decepticons. You know what I mean? Like they intermix and then they just kind of split down the middle and said, okay, let's get these.
Yeah, let's put a sticker
on. Let's get super fucking nerdy here, guys.
Please.
We're getting out of the normie run. Mike, do you know what Macross is?
I do know what Macross is. It's a anime series with robots and planes that also features a pop star that inspires everyone to do their best fighting.
Yeah, I didn't know that last part. That's really great. Very popular in Japan. Yes. Obviously came out before Transformers. Now, on that floor of the toy fair that Takara would do, they would put out all these models. And the people at Hasbro would walk and go, okay, we'll take that, we'll take that, we'll take that, we'll take that. Mm-hmm. They're buying up the licensing and putting little characters to them. This is Ironhide. He's a tough Texas warrior who shoots his guns, and of course he turns into a minivan. And you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense.
Turns into a minivan.
As the toys. In the movies, what? It's like a big 4x4 truck or whatever, right?
GM, yeah.
So on that floor, they go, and we'll take one of these. And they buy one Macross property, and that is Jetfire. It's the only type of Transformer that's a different robot toy than all the other robot toys. And if you had one as a kid, I mean, it felt different. It felt real. And his plotline in this is really great because it's the story of, well, you know, it's very truncated of, I was on one side, I switched to the other. He's kind of the Civil War side. That's a big homage to his role in the cartoon where He's unfrozen after 1,000,000 years because that's kind of the story as the Transformers ship struck Earth, when it was kind of forming. They kind of woke up in the 80s or whatever, but, it was 1,000,000,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. He gets lost. They find him. He's not affiliated to the other side. He tries to get converted to both. His best friend, Chief Science Officer, is Starscream, who's like, you got to work for the Decepticons. We're actually the good guys. And as a toy, he was bought and made to be a rival to Starscream. He's a bigger airplane. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of weird homages to that. Jacob, when I'm saying this is the toyiest movie, you gotta Michael Bay's making these decisions to be we gotta put Jetfire and Colin's gonna love that. His older brother's just gonna flip seeing Jetfire in this fucking thing.
What are you looking at, slobberpuss? What the? This place is a freaking house of horrors.
Hold on.
Is that the best you got, huh? Is that the best you can do?
What are you doing here, you little freak?
Ow, that's my eye, you crazy bitch!
You gonna talk now?
Ow, ow, ow! I seek knowledge from the cube. The Fallen demands me.
What knowledge?
You got the shard. I need the shard. Give me the shard. I need the shard. Give me the shard. They're gonna whack me. I'm gonna be done without that shard. Easy, warrior goddess. I'm just a little salvage scrap drone.
And I'm your worst nightmare.
Hey.
Well, I didn't know any of that when I watched the movie, but that's very interesting. But I will say the movie doesn't do a good job of explaining why, he's like, oh, I'm a Decepticon, or I used to be a Decepticon, but I'm good now. But they don't explain why. They don't explain any of that.
It's one line. He's old... they were kind of assholes or whatever.
It's a dumb portrayal, too. He's a weak old man who has to, shit everywhere and, use a cane, and he's, senile. That's not great.
I like that his cane's a piece of landing gear.
Yeah, his cane is, a separate robot thing that's not a part of his body, but also transforms with him, maybe. But I like him because he's just a grumpy old man who's like, oh, I guess I'll help you or whatever. And then he sacrifices himself at the end. Spoiler alert. Yeah. Which Optimus, doesn't really thank him for or acknowledge in any kind of way.
No, he just met him. He was dead for the entire adventure. He literally says at one point, a Prime exists? I would love to meet a Prime.
And he gives his body to him. Let's roll. Yeah. And then he just shrugs it off at the end of the day and leaves it on the ground in the middle of the desert. Thanks, Jetfire. You piece of shit.
Thanks for your sacrifice. Yeah. But I will say when he becomes Super Optimus, he then just kicks the ass of the Fallen and Megatron at the same time in about 5 minutes. It's pretty badass, but there's some good, decent action fight scenes.
Okay, Jacob, there's decent action, but let me ask you what you think philosophically of this action. We have the leader of revolutionaries, who in the last movie screams at Megatron, the humans must decide their own fate. We must protect them at all costs and that stuff. Clearly a guy who, and again, the cartoons, but you don't need to reference that, but true to his character is, if we can solve a conflict without violence, that's a true victory. Now, the Optimus Prime in this movie has 2 swords that come out of his arms, and he is constantly cutting people's heads off. He says, don't you run from me, Decepticon, at one point, and then he kills said Decepticon.
Well, he rips a Decepticon heart out of its body, and then...
Yeah, and he also rips...
So much like Mortal Kombat,
Yes.
A fatality, robo-fatality.
I think my favorite fight scene actually was the first Optimus fight scene when Sam gets captured by Megatron and they invade his brain with the Decepticons and everything. Optimus saves him, and then they have a big fight in the forest, and he ends up ripping a Decepticon's head apart, he just rips his head apart, which is pretty gnarly.
It's a war crime, Jacob.
Yeah, he's so violent in this, and even when he defeats the Fallen, he just says, give me your face, and rips it off. Right. Is that a catchphrase?
Do you think this is a response to the last movie where there's only one fight between Optimus and Megatron at the end? It's not very long, so fans would go, no, we need more robot violence, and it is Optimus who needs to be the hero. Is this a response?
I think it's a combination of things. Like, number one, sequels got to be bigger and badder. Let's just get more robots. And number two, I think it's tied into that writer's strike where it's like, well, story, I don't know. How do we pad the runtime? Michael Bay going to do what Michael Bay does, big, crazy action. And they had at one point the largest explosion in cinema history when the Air Force does that napalm strike in the desert. And you do get some cool stuff like Bumblebee stripping the Zoid of his body off his spine. Like, there's some brutal stuff in here, but I think that's just like, we don't have a script. Michael Bay, just do Michael Bay stuff. That's also probably why we get multiple scenes of humping and other stuff like that.
Look, Mojo is back.
Mojo's got his mojo back.
Mojo is back, Jacob. Frank is having sex with him. Wheelie,
don't even get me
started. Not cool, Transformer. Kind of a combination of two different ones. Blur, one that would talk really fast, like a motor mouth like this, and Wheelie, one that was like a kid that wouldn't talk. It seems like they put him together in sort of this sexual monster. I'll describe him as.
But also, were those Decepticons in the cartoon?
No, they were both Autobots. So I guess maybe that's why he switches sides at the end.
Basically, this is like a little Decepticon pervert who gets captured by Megan Fox and then tortured and then becomes like her slave and like starts humping her leg at one point. Yeah,
he becomes her sub. Right.
Yeah, he's like, I'll follow. You're my mommy. And
you're my battle goddess, he calls her. Crawls around her feet. Yeah.
Battle goddess.
Probably the greatest scene. But here's also my other question. Do Transformers feel pain? They do, right?
They must, yeah.
I hope they
do. Like from this movie. Because also Megan Fox tortures this little guy.
Burns his eye out.
Puts his eye out with a freaking blowtorch. I'm like, that's
it dangles for the rest of the fucking movie. She cripples him.
And he still subs for her.
He's into it, yeah.
Yeah, he likes it.
He's a masochist.
He's there for.
That's right. So,
but
there's weird
a lot
isms.
of violence. Transform on Transformer violence. Optimus is ruthless, and then he, the Fallen kind of goes out like a punk, like gets his face ripped off.
He's not in the climax. He spends so much of the movie. It's him and Megatron. They're just standing on the pyramid, not moving, just letting stuff play out.
The
and then when Optimus finally comes to life, then they get involved. Yeah, the Devastator, I think, is what it's called, right? It's the combiner. A very cool effect, right? Colin?
And a big toy thing.
Mega's the worst.
Becomes a Megazord, exactly.
Yes, so.
Ultron.
Another Japanese thing, yeah.
No, it was a cool thing for the toys. The Constructicons, construction bots specifically, as we see construction cars that do it, form Devastator. And like you guys said, he's a larger-than-life robot. This is something as a fan, I'm like, awesome, you're escalating. Like Mike said, it's a sequel, bigger and better. But in that first scene in Shanghai, guys, where we get just the piece and it's the giant wheel rolling down the street. And I have to visualize and conceptualize Optimus Prime is jumping out of the way. He looks very tiny compared to that wheel. What do we look like? At that moment, Jacob, I'm like, the scale issue of this thing, I already have an issue with how big the Transformers are. I don't want to think about any of this.
Right. And it's like, why is Optimus Prime, like, what makes him a Prime? He's, like, stronger than the rest of the Autobots or whatever?
Well, he's got more flames on his body.
Oh, that's true.
I would say that makes him a Prime.
A Descendant?
Well, this film specifically also seems very indebted or very interested in recreating the magic that was the first animated movie. I told you guys last week, the hook of that film, we didn't know it because we were kids, was the death of Optimus Prime. It changed a generation. Obviously, for toy sellers, that was clean house. Let's make this movie all new characters. You're just buying all new toys. But for kids, it was, oh no, Optimus Prime is dead. Like, my life is absolutely over. And it did scar a generation. Like, you look this up, like, they completely had to change the G.I. Joe movie to not kill a character because so many people wrote in about Optimus Prime dying. To try to capture that, to to introduce movie-specific characters. I said Wheelie, stuff like that. It really does seem like Michael Bay is sort of going like, I'm about to James Cameron this. This is about to be my T2, baby. Like, I am going to blow minds, break hearts. I'm going to take Optimus Prime out of this thing. And guess what? People are going to cry over it. And you want to say to him, we knew Optimus Prime for 10 seconds in the last movie.
Right.
And in this movie, he opens up saying the dumbest line you've ever heard, Earth, birthplace of humans? And you're like, yes, of course. What else would it be? You're not blowing my mind with these facts. What makes him a Prime, Jacob? It's like he's the leader of these idiots that we hang out every couple minutes with, but he doesn't seem like he's the best.
No, and even when you see him with other Autobots, he's not like that much bigger than them. Like he should be like big and strong, but until he gets the Jetfire parts at the end, he's not really. But
it's supposed to be his mind. It's supposed to be he is the only one who can lead these people in a way where they're going to be able to sleep at night and like feel good about what they did. And he's, going to be the olive branch to humanity, all these cultures coming together. No, none of that, Mike. I mean, he's just a big truck.
Yeah. And
But
that's like
so in the backstory of the Fallen though, like he's one of he's one of the original primes.
the
and
original
Fallen
8
was one of the
primes. Yeah.
Yes.
And so the rest of the primes, basically to hide the matrix of leadership, from the Fallen, which is the only thing that the Fallen needs to like take over.
To turn on, it's to turn on the weapon. It's to turn on the Sun Eater. Yeah.
But the only people. That can
hold
kill
on.
the Fallen,
Or Shia LaBeouf says, hey, that thing that does that one certain thing, could it also bring somebody back from the dead? And Jetfire goes, probably.
It's never been used like that before, but maybe.
Sure. Also, you could just touch him with a shard like they did with Megatron, but
right.
Whatever.
Well, that's the other thing. But then, the only thing that can kill the Fallen is a Prime. The only Prime left is Optimus, so they kill him. But the rest of the Primes all sacrifice themselves to make a door to seal off the matrix of leadership. Don't they see anything wrong with that like logic of like, well, if they're dead, then who's going to fight the Fallen? I guess
we should probably stick around.
And then, to follow that inconsistent logic up, Shia LaBeouf locates it, and then it's just turns to sand or whatever, and then he goes to Robot Heaven, Valhalla, and then they say, oh, you don't find it, you earn it. So how could that other Prime ever have earned it if you just decided he wasn't worthy, right? And then they give him the thing.
It's an Infinity Stone, Mike.
Yeah.
He had to push Black Widow off the cliff. It was the only way for it to appear to him.
What did it cost you, Optimus? Everything.
Everything.
Like every chosen
Give
one.
me your face.
Jesus narrative. He has to die and then come back to life and then save the day, right? Harry Potter did it. He can do it too.
Zack Snyder did it. Shout out.
Can I just say, you guys want to be here already? You don't want to be at college with a girl who turns into a robot right now? You don't want to be talking about that stuff?
Well,
we didn't talk about Einstein yet. That's true.
Yeah, the first hour of this movie is basically pointless. You could start an hour into this movie and not miss really anything important.
The plot
babes.
we just talked
we'll
about
miss the
is
babes,
the plot
Jacob.
of the movie, but it's not. You know what I mean? But it's like it's what happens and it is the piece of it. Truly, until John Turturro shows up again, you're right, Jacob. Nothing worthwhile happens.
Yeah, I think when it kicks off, it starts to get interesting when Shia, is with the girl that's actually a Decepticon, which apparently some kind of robot, which is
just use
she's
the
only
Cylons.
robot that can look like a human.
Let me do this real quick. Again, a toy homage. I'm loving these things.
Really? Okay.
There is a line of Transformer toys when we were growing up in like 1995 called Pretenders. Now, Mike, you said last week you had Starscream, and you said, and it was hard, and I blew past that. I apologize, Mike, because I want to talk about that for a minute. Transformers were impossible to do anything with or to play with, right?
Yeah, there's so many pieces you had to remove and move. Like when you watch the show, it looks like you just kind of fold this thing down into the chest and you're good. But you're taking components off, moving them around. I was like,
Starscream specifically had
5 to
flaps
7.
that would come down that were nubs, Mike, and you would have to put his hands on him, if you recall that. If you lost those, you could not play with Starscream anymore, Mike.
Yeah, I was an age
seems really
bracket
complicated.
probably below, I think, the intended age for that toy.
Easily. But my parents would try to play with them with my brother, and they would not be able to do it, even looking at the instructions, and he would just blow them away. Now, I say this to say, Hasbro's #1 complaint with the toys was, nobody can do these things. So they were like, oh,
Stick with Legos.
right. Yeah, exactly. Other kids
Too
were just like,
complicated for me.
well, I'll just use Mattel's He-Man because it's just a toy. And you're like, oh, right. Kids just want toys. So they make a line called Pretenders. They were literally just figures of the toys. And they said, that's going to piss Transformer fans off. They have to be robots. They said, no. They're actually humans. You take their little head off. There's a little human underneath. This is an homage to those humans that turn into a robot, these Pretenders or whatever.
Terminators.
Now, Jacob, thank you. That's fucking exactly why they were. If you could do that, if you had that ability and technology, why would something that is 2 skyscrapers tall ever come down to a planet to do a stealth mission? Hang out on Mars, you dumb motherfuckers, and send 30 of those things down.
Well, maybe this is the only one because it's the only one we see, and
They only
who
have
knows?
one cat, one Pretender. Right.
It just seems like Decepticons could be anything at any time, and
Mountain
who
Dew.
knows? Yeah.
Satellite, Soundwave, the coolest Transformer, my favorite when I was growing up. And you get the, kind of a Frank Welker, the guy who played Megatron in the original. We didn't say in the last episode. Doesn't get to play him in this. Peter Colin, who voices Optimus Prime, does. Instead, it's Hugo Weaving from Lord of the Rings, right? Frank Welker also voiced Soundwave, the crazy... I can't even do it. Crazy thing that would talk like this, Megatron.
Vote changer, yeah.
The voice in this, yeah, like an early synth, kind of thing. So it was very cool.
And he had a cassette tape. We don't get the cassette tape. I think Soundwave was famous for shooting out, the cassette tapes. But
specifically, he would shoot out a crazy wolf thing. That is the leopard thing.
That's our Zoid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
well, first of all,
Riot,
Colin,
I think, but.
Let's talk about the first scene when we first meet this Pretender lady, and she goes for a ride with Bumblebee's car, but then Bumblebee, I think, senses that she's bad, and
or he just doesn't want him to cheat.
Jacob, if there's no script in this is the scene where you're realizing that. Shia LaBeouf's reaction to the liquid being sprayed all over this girl is like she's going to explode in front of him. He is so crazy and over the top.
Well, at this point, he's also having seizures from the numbers and codes in his head.
I'm just glad that we're 2 movies in and we're 2 for 2 with Bumblebee leaking his fluids onto another human.
Yeah.
But I think also maybe it was because Bumblebee only wants Shia to be with Megan Fox, because in the first one he's like encouraging them to like make out inside of him, and then
maybe Bumblebee is more in love with Michaela
I
than
think
Sam.
Bumblebee wants to fuck Sam Witwicky, Mike. I think that is what's going on.
But he's trying to.
He's not into this other lady.
Yeah, because maybe he can sense she's a Decepticon, or he just doesn't want Sam to make a mistake with Michaela. But again, it's like Sam just doesn't make his Skype date with Michaela, which
Sam
is a terrible person. He's
hold on.
So bad.
He sucks. He's the worst. We're talking about Megan Fox now, so let's she's entering the podcast. Let's do her right.
I posited last episode that I think she was the strongest character. So
the best character. And Mike, how do they reward her? They just let's whittle her away. Let's take her away.
They just give her nothing
let's
to do.
Guys. The obvious storyline for someone who ends up with a couple in the last one is the guy hasn't said I love you yet. Like, that's obviously where we're going to go for the rest of this movie. And you go, okay, that's tired and played out. Mike, the first time we see Megan Fox, once she leaves the place, she shows up at his door in like a wedding outfit. She picks up a bouquet. She turns around and he says, oh my God, I am so happy to see you. What the fuck was any of that?
Yeah. That's,
I don't know.
Michael Bay, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, and also the first shot of her is just her, like,
bent over the motorcycle.
On a motorcycle.
Her ass.
Yeah. Classic shot. But And then we get a little
Yeah.
backstory with her dad being out of prison now. We get
Hey,
a
Dad.
little scene with him.
He walks by
doesn't
in
go
one scene,
anywhere.
Jacob. Hey, Dad, I'll close up the garage. Don't worry.
I thought maybe they were setting that up to be some kind of story element, but no, he never gets mentioned again. And then she basically gets
Jacob,
nothing
we're never
do
going to
in this
see
movie.
Megan Fox again. This was the last Megan Fox movie.
This was her.
Crazy.
Yeah,
She's never in movies anymore.
the end of her character arc is she did contribute in the sense that she captured the Decepticon who was able to lead them to Jetfire. Right. I guess that's something, but like in the final fight, everybody is holding her hand. Like Sam Witwicky is dragging her along, holding her hand because she's the damsel. And then even Josh Duhamel, the soldier, is pulling her along by the hand because she's the damsel. It's like so frustrating. And she just wants Sam to say, I love you. Oh, it kills me.
That's terrible character motivation. But the total plotting, like you're saying, Mike, is so piss poor too. We've already started. The start of the movie is we're Skyping each other. This is so weird. There's distance. Hold on, I'll be right over there, though, because for the plot reason, you have to give me the thing that's going to want you to come to me 30 minutes from now, okay? So I will be right over there to get that.
Still, definitely won't be making out with...
She gets there at the exact moment that he's making out with a pretender, but then
sitcom situation.
immediately forgives him, right? So it's like we're going to have friction, but then we're just going to not. Like there's no payoff and no consequences, I said earlier.
Worst time, and then immediately forgives him. But I mean, he didn't know that was like a robot or whatever. I guess so that makes it okay.
I guess. Sure. He's got the world's worst roommate, Jacob. This guy is such a fucking loser. To add to the cast of a Transformers movie to say, you know what, but we're not going to want more time with these robots. Let's throw in a goofy roommate who will say things like, whoa, or, like react really funny to stuff.
Right. And I mean, he's basically just a mini John Turturro. Like he fulfills the same role of John Turturro. So when they bring in
John Turturro someone to talk to, you're right.
Yeah. You know what they should have done is they should have made him like John Turturro's long lost son or something. That had some kind of They would have some kind of realization.
Long lost. He's still keeping tabs on Sam. You cost me my job, but that's okay because my son, I gave him security clearance to, tail you or whatever. It's that easy.
Right. Also, John Turturro, kind of sucks. Like basically, the government fires him. They shut down Section 7 or whatever, and they don't reassign him or anything. They just let him go with no retirement. That's kind of shitty, right? Like,
that's believable.
I got the crab lock ready.
Yeah, that's probably the most believable thing in this movie is that you could just get screwed over with no benefits at a moment's notice.
Exactly. So he was a high-level agent for a government agency. Now he's working at a deli. Quite a
that was dealing with first contact with life from another planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just have to imagine in the test screenings, John Turturro for that first movie must have just been through the roof. That people were like, when Shia LaBeouf is having scenes where they're busting each other's balls, it is so good. Michael Bay's like, John, I gotta have you back. I gotta have you in T2, man. I'm making Transformers 2, baby. It's called Revenge of the Fallen. Don't even worry about it.
Don't worry, there's going to be a close-up shot of your butt when you rip your pants off.
Give you a jock strap for no
Jacob,
reason.
You're going to continue your weird through line of being sexually obsessed with Megan Fox and say, there you are, you hot little bandit. You
criminal. Yeah.
And then also in the first one, he gets lubricated by Bumblebee, right? In this one, he has a line where he says, I'm directly below the scrotum.
Thank you. Yes.
So this is purely like Michael Bay unleashed. Like we don't have a script.
Absolutely.
Just give us 2.5 hours, Michael.
Mike, I could see him saying after this, you know what? I don't think I'll ever need one of those things again. And you just like, no, Michael, you're learning the wrong lesson.
No, come back. I think famously, like he has been like, yeah, that was not the greatest Transformers movie, and the cast famously kind of has not loved how it turned out. But
the big flip where there's the car crash where Starscream gets them, that is like the explosion, injury, whip pull thing that like Shia LaBeouf parodies in the Honey Boy movie, right? That actually hurt him physically afterwards. I mean, it was not good, guys.
When he had like an unrelated hand injury too, that they just were like, screw it, we'll just put a bandage on. We're shooting anyway. Yeah, it's a lot of weird stuff with this.
Oh, that was so he hurt his hand.
He had that drunk driving. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, in real life, he hurt his hand.
That was weird when when Jetfire is able to just teleport them to Egypt somehow.
Yes.
Because apparently he can do it. He didn't fly them like a jet would. He just teleported them. and then
Space
he injures
bridge.
his hand in the teleporting incident.
Mike, it's all I want to talk about right now. So imagine this, Jacob. There was this thing in the show called the Space Bridge. The way that he kind of
Thank
draws the
God
half
it's a real thing.
Shia, Mike, they're trying in this one. It was kind of how you would have to stack the energon to do it. Now, by like season 3 of the animated show, the people who were making it were kind of like, we're fucking talking about Cybertron, this fucking robot planet, so fucking much. The fans want to go there. Like, they cannot be lost on Earth anymore. They have to go to other places.
Right.
So they invent this thing called a space bridge, which I think this was kind of an homage to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that would be like, guys, if in the OG Star Trek, for 2 seasons and then, a third that wasn't made, for the first 2, they just had to go and do the things. And by season 3, they were like, you know what? Let's invent the transporter. Like, let's just fucking get to the meat of the action. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, why do we gotta take a shuttle, do the traveling? Right.
Also, I thought the space bridge went to Asgard, or is that a different
Oh,
space?
exactly.
Nice, dude.
Exactly.
Nice.
That's exactly where it goes. You have to, it totally changed the show because all the plot lines from that point became, well, this week we're going to Cybertron, or if something happens to the space bridge, we won't be able to get back, or, oh, it accidentally sent us to a different place, or, watch the space bridge, Starscream, we have to, it was every fucking day.
Nice. Okay, see, so as much as I'm like there was no script, there definitely was at least a round table like,
I think
here's
a
stuff
guy
from the show and toys.
On set was watching it, Mike, and just like had it on a loop, and Michael Bay would come back to Video Village and say, what do you got? And he'd say, well, they could get from Egypt technically to the base with a space bridge. And he's like, what's a space bridge? Well, it's, metaphysically. He's like, no, we won't worry about that. Don't worry, we got it.
Teleport's all right. Send a memo to the animators.
It definitely seems like there's someone who knows the lore of Transformers at least a little bit. And then, like I said last week, they were originally going to call the Allspark the Matrix, which is based on a real thing, and then this time it's the Matrix of Leadership. So I don't know if they call it that
same MacGuffin.
exactly.
It's the Autobot Matrix of Leadership. It's the total exact same thing. It's a terrible redesign because they turn it into a dumb little silver sliver, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, which again, it's drawing so much from that first animated movie, this tactical thing you have to put your fingers into. It's this like bomb of an energy source. Like it's this huge sci-fi concept that has stayed in my mind since I was 6 years old. Oh, that's one of the coolest images I've ever seen. I just want to touch it. I want to see it. Sam, it's not real. It's going to turn into sand. It's like a dumb little like knife thing. And it's like, oh, it looks like a Star Wars thing. It looks like the dagger that Rey gets.
Oh my
I'm
God,
like,
yeah, but cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is very similar to that. And yeah, he puts it in an old sock, just classic, iconic stuff,
Classic.
You love it. You love it.
Because he believes.
Right. Just to go back to what you were saying before, though, about the set, Michael Bay being on set, of course, we want to mention that they call it Bayhem, right? Instead of Mayhem.
God.
Because
Nice.
Michael Bay, he would just be blowing stuff up, and on set, he would just be crazy and put the actors through a lot of shit. So they call it
said, a lot of those explosions and things, he is operating that camera, Jacob. He is there on the track, getting pushed through. There's so many pictures of debris hitting him on the fucking face as he's like shooting out people.
Of director.
Yeah,
that's
very true.
His own stunts.
Similar hair too.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, he just goes and goes, man. I don't know. Let's talk. We have not talked about the third build person in this movie, so let's round it up here with the military stuff. Josh Duhamel.
Oh.
Now, we didn't talk about him too much last time because really there's not a lot for him to do. Right. This time, if you're going to bring him back, and again, if you're number 3 on the call sheet behind the 2 people who are like the young leads, quote unquote, and you're like the serious one, you got to give him a bad guy. Now, what's a bad guy to Michael Bay? It's probably like a sniveling loser who's got fucking glasses on, who's always saying things like, we'll probably have to negotiate with the terrorists. No way, man.
That's not in the budget, Michael.
Yeah, and he gets rid of him by putting a parachute on him and then, shooting him out of the back of the plane. And who knows if he's okay or not, but they don't really care.
They don't know. We see that he's fine. But yeah, I think, you probably lose your career for that. This is my favorite Josh Duhamel performance in these movies because
Great. Okay, well, let's track that,
because
Mike.
this is the only one where he throws a live chicken by hand out of his way. And I want to know the story behind that scene because he runs to his little sniper window and then there's a shot of, you see his arm extending and the chicken following the trajectory. You don't see it leaving his hand, but I know it was in there. And I want to know, Michael Bay, all right, Josh, you're going to throw the chicken out of the way and then put your rifle out. And like that moment alone.
You see, when you go to Egyptian villages, they just have a lot of open air chickens
a lot
just
of
running
chickens
around.
just running around.
Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf at one point pushes 4 of them out of the way of a window. It's like, why are there so many chickens here? There's an
Mike,
explosion and
the
a chicken
wince
flies
he's
away
got
from
on his
it.
face, because normies, you have to know Mike sent us clips of this. The
Yes.
look that Shia has is a guy who has dealt with those chickens all day, Mike, who has done 50 takes because of Michael Bay and now doesn't even look at them but kind of winces when he glances them.
It's crazy. Yeah, I kept like, I sent the Josh Duhamel clip. I'm like, Josh Duhamel just threw a chicken. And then 5 minutes later in the movie, I'm like, Shia LaBeouf did it too. And I sent him the clip. So anyway, yeah, great stuff here, Michael.
You mean you don't have to work for those miserable freaking Decepticons? I'm changing sides too, warrior goddess. Who's your little autobot? Name's Wheelie. Yeah. Say my name.
Can you stop?
Hey, what are you
It's just something to
doing?
think about. I don't want to argue with. What were you saying?
I am directly below the enemy scrotum.
Do you guys like Josh Duhamel? Jacob?
I like him.
Who is this guy?
Charming.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like he didn't even need to be in this movie because I feel like he didn't have anything to do. Or Tyrese. I don't know what
Tyrese is just like, man, this desert sucks, huh? I hope nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
Kind of seems anti-transformer. He says a couple things where he's like, watch yourself, Optimus. And Optimus kind of says back, look where you're going.
Yeah, a little bit. He's had enough.
Yeah. Which brings me to the first point, which I did not remember about this movie at all, which this movie opens with the Autobots are just working with the military. They're a special
Well, why
branch
wouldn't
of the
you want to,
military.
dude? USA, Stars and Stripes, let's go.
That kind of blew my mind, though, because I don't remember them, like, literally just working with the military. And Josh Duhamel runs a new, like, transformer group of the military, I guess.
Yes.
They go out on missions together.
We work with the people from another world.
We shoot our
That's why it's
5.56 caliber rounds at giant robots while
Yeah.
Optimus
And
Prime
that's
does all the real work.
That is the only thing we add to situations. But we meet 2 new sets of Transformers that the bureaucrat says, and you invited these creatures from another world to come after the attack? How dare you? You know, how could you get sanctuary? We meet RC, which in the movie where she's introduced is the first lady Transformer. We never see her transform into a robot, but we know that she has 3 motorcycles in this who project a holographic lady riding them. Very weird. We also meet Mike's namesake for this episode, the 2 most racist characters ever introduced in fiction.
Yeah, let's let him finish.
Mudflap and whatever his name is.
Yeah, and this is why I say Jetfire was my favorite robot in this whole movie, because the most prominent Autobots, you have Bumblebee who doesn't talk, Optimus dies, and then you have these 2 racial stereotypes.
Oh my god.
That are pretty much the most prominent Transformers in this movie.
Bug eyes, huge ears. They
They're
at
not
one
like a
point
side
say,
character.
shit, nah, no, dog. They are in a lot of scenes. And then at one point they are asked if they can read, and they say, we don't do too much of that reading stuff.
Yeah, you don't read, you're robots. Robots know how to read.
Who invented you 2? What cruel master was like, I'm going to make these ones a little dumber?
It makes me miss, I never thought I'd be like, oh man, I wish Jazz would have survived in that.
Yeah,
that one that smells pheromones. I wish we had them back. You know,
Ratchet.
Right.
Jazz.
Get,
Jazz. I'm like, you know what? Jazz is PC.
Ironically enough, these 2 robots are far more Ratchet than Ratchet himself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Well, this is what's crazy because I remember them kind of being as like side characters or whatever. No, they are like literally in the Egypt stuff with Sam and Michaela. It's like Bumblebee and them.
And Wheelie.
Oh god.
All the best characters. Again, when you were watching this, you're like, Michael Bay, you could see him just like flipping through a book, like, okay, so who are going to be my core cast for this one? Okay, I got all these heroes. No, let's keep going.
It's like a Chevy Volt or something. Like, they're not even cool cars.
And that's what it is. It's to sell a new brand, right?
But no one
Mike?
wants to drive mud flap.
No,
Everyone
no,
wanted a Bumblebee Camaro. Nobody wanted a mud flap.
I guess.
After that,
I don't know.
But Jacob's right. So you're making a Transformers movie, and it's like, okay, well, let's spend time with some of the Transformers that the audience likes. So how about we let Bumblebee not do anything or talk, and we kill Optimus Prime, and we just hang out with Mudflap and his buddy. Like, what are you doing?
It's not even like we don't even see like Ironhide and whatever the other Autobots are as much. Like, it's mainly those two. And Wheelie
doing shenanigans.
When Bumblebee is introduced by Kevin Dunn, he has said, "You're not a Guardian anymore. You're just a car. Go back in the garage and sit down." Which would be like if I said, "Mike, go stand in the closet and do nothing."
You're not a host anymore, right?
Right.
And they established that he could talk in the last movie, and then this one opens.
He's a person.
There's like,
his voice box broke again.
It broke again. I don't know. It's not even explained.
No.
I mean, and then Shia has to tell him, like, it's like he's leaving his dog behind for college, right? He has to say, "No, sorry, buddy, you can't come to college with me. You got to stay in this dark garage by yourself."
Like, why? You have a car? That changes our life. Like, that's huge.
Right. Why couldn't he just take his sweet yellow Camaro to college?
I have no idea.
Yeah, in the event that, I don't know, he has, hieroglyphic seizures and the Decepticons are coming after him, maybe Bumblebee would be good to keep an eye on him. I wish to stay with the boy. Well, yeah, maybe you should have stayed with him.
Oh, my.
Kept an eye on him.
Yeah. But let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Whitwicky real quick, because obviously they're our favorite characters.
Jacob, I had one of those Earth Day brownies, so I'm feeling a little crazy right now.
Yeah. Classic Michael Bay humor here,
Right.
Guys, while they are in a dorm room with a Bad Boys poster up, Michael Bay is shameless
he draws on the
in
Bad
this
Boys
moment.
2 poster. He draws his codes and everything.
Yeah.
Well, she talks. Well, there's a joke about Sam losing his virginity and how the mom heard it, but they didn't know she was home. That's a joke point that's brought up by the mom.
Because this is the horniest movie ever made. Later, she gets a phone call from Soundwave and assumes it's a lewd caller.
Yeah, you're heavy breathing. How did they get to Egypt? I looked away for a second, and I don't know how they got there.
Okay, I was wondering
this
this too, because there's a scene where
Did none of us know?
They're in France.
No, there's a scene where Decepticon shows up in Paris where they are and takes them to Egypt, but I was unclear why the Decepticons took his parents to Egypt in the first place, so that I do not know.
Says, I could not find the boy, and Megatron says, "You could not find one worm?" And he says, "1 worm out of 7 billion worms!" And he's like, "Bah!" And so it's kind of like they know that they're trying to track down Shia. I guess they think it's because if they go through the parents, it'll be easier. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of awkward humor with the Whitwickies, as there was in the beginning. The college thing is very strange, but then even when they're in Egypt, they try to force that emotional beat where it's like, "I'm not leaving without you, Sam. Dad, you're not coming with me." And then it's like, "All right." But then Michaela's like, "I'm not going to leave you, Sam." And he's like, "Okay, you can come with me, but not my parents."
Yeah, let's go.
I don't care if you get killed by a fucking Decepticon. You're not even going to be in the next movie.
Which it's not a bad performance by the dad.
By his government.
Yeah,
no, it never is.
The emotional scene with Kevin Dunn, I thought that was the only time I even liked his parents at all.
Logically, it made no sense, but in a capsule, it was like, man, there's some acting happening here, and I'm okay for it. It doesn't make any sense, but the scene is fun.
Yeah, speaking of Shia, Sam Whitwicky, he never shows any reason why he's the chosen one of the Transformers. He's kind of a useless character, doesn't whines a lot, just kind of an asshole. But then he goes to robot heaven, and then they tell him, "Oh, you're a freak eater."
Jacob, when he is with Rainn Wilson, the professor in those scenes, and he's
Yes.
just going full, and he's just like making faces and looking around. That is another one of those moments where I'm like, oh yeah, Mike, there was no script. Of course there was no script. Like, how am I learning this after I watched the movie?
You're
Right.
going crazy, Shia. Just you're kind of going crazy with these symbols. And action. Oh God.
He's doing Forrest Gump. I mean, he's fully like lost his mind.
Kitten
Oh,
calendar,
yeah.
kitten calendar, kitten calendar, kitten calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
And then you got Rainn Wilson as the sexy professor that
heartthrob
all the girls
professor.
are into. Yeah, which reminds
Sure.
me of Harrison Ford. Indiana Jones,
And
obviously Raiders of the Lost Ark.
obviously, he's like, that's what we're doing here. But again, if there's no script, the stuff Rainn Wilson is saying is like the female of the sex, and he'll like lock eyes with a woman, and you're just like,
Virgo,
oh, he's
the
going to
virgin.
rape
Yeah,
these people.
No,
Yeah,
that's
Virgo.
definitely in
Oh.
a couple years there will be a huge scandal where he was
Absolutely.
sexually assaulting a bunch of his students, and he'll get fired, hopefully.
Yeah.
But also they got Dwight Schrute to be the handsome
Badness.
professor. Okay, sure, whatever.
There's a million just random dudes that you could hire in LA that would
Yeah.
better fit that role. But yeah, I do want to mention, now that we're talking about great logical decisions, and they're showing up, right? You have John Turturro and his son, not son, and then Shia and Michaela, and then they get with Bumblebee, and they're like, okay, we need to get to Optimus. So instead of driving in this car that is also my protector, we're going to send the car away, and we will go on foot and try to make it like 5 miles through the desert on foot. When the
Right.
whole
Yeah,
premise
why
of
didn't they-
Transformers is you have a vehicle that is also a robot warrior.
There is very little transforming in this movie.
A lot of it's off screen. You're right. You're right.
Yes.
But I don't know why they don't just ride in Bumblebee the 5 miles in a straight line.
Yeah, even John Turturro is riding in one of those little racial stereotype guys.
Yeah.
He could be riding in Bumblebee. Yeah.
A
doesn't make any
lone
sense.
warrior.
Yeah. But that is one of the few. There's 2 jokes that work in this. A man alone betrayed by his country or
man
whatever.
alone betrayed
And
by his
then
country,
I'm
yeah.
going to get you a tighter shirt. There isn't a tighter shirt. We
That
checked.
Mike, I out loud said that is one of the funniest things I have ever heard in my life.
I still quote that to this day.
The way that guy's like, we checked. Like when he crosses his arms as he says it, that is so good.
And they fist
That's
bump
great.
and everything. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Can I give you the worst moment in the entire movie? Weird, not John Turturro's son walking out in the Air Force Museum going, "Oh no, do you have any toilet paper? I had an accident."
No,
That was
there's
the
so
second
much
pants down
random,
joke of this movie.
That is,
Yeah, there's
that,
so much like
broke my
toilet
heart.
humor in this that is just
Oh,
so
yeah.
dumb. It's like, okay, yeah, we got John Turturro's jockstrap. Later, he's under the scrotum of the Devastator, which is like 2 wrecking balls, which are supposed to be his testicles.
Yeah, it's feedback, Jacob. It is the test screening going like, well, marketing says 10-year-olds were the audience that mainly saw the first one. And Michael Bay's like, oh, yeah, I'll put buttholes. When
Yeah,
Wheelie
let's put a bunch of
transforms, I'll have him
bacon
shoot
part
fire out of his asshole. I don't give a shit. And it's like, oh, but
Yeah.
I do.
And then you get great Josh Whedon-esque beats of when they teleport, and then not John Turturro's son lands, or Michaela lands
yes,
near his
yes.
crotchal region, and it's like comedy.
yeah.
Classic, classic.
You got a
stuff.
girlfriend?
Oh.
No, not yet.
You landed on my balls.
Yeah.
I would be into it, but now I'm in pain.
And she just turns away, doesn't even react to what he
Yeah.
said. She's
Oh,
like, I hate this
I
movie.
wouldn't. I wouldn't, Mike. I would ask
dignify
him to
that.
leave.
With a response.
That was also the scene directly after he tases himself in the balls.
Yes.
So his balls are just taking a lot of
And he
torture.
knocked out a guard by tasing him in the hand. So apparently the, hand
guard
is a very
gives him
effective.
the toilet paper and says, "You should be ashamed of yourself." It really made me
Okay.
upset watching it.
That brings me to my next and near one of my final points. You should be ashamed of yourself, is how Michael Bay should feel for most of these jokes.
Yes.
And then there's a moment when they're talking to Jetfire, and John Turturro just says, condense, plot, story, tell it. And I'm just like, this movie is describing itself right now.
I think he was just taking the notes of
Yeah.
the
So
producers.
self-aware.
Just read this, yeah.
Act 3, huh?
Yeah.
But this is
Keep
why
it
it
moving.
feels like every scene is improvised. Like all the comedy, they're just like,
Yes.
just kind of roll with it, and we'll just cut at some point.
Yeah.
And they just like every scene goes on too long. It's just like the actors are riffing on each other, but it just doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we're going to cut to the Fallen every once in a while. And Shia LaBeouf's like, what's the Fallen? And they're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
We
Don't
got
worry
20 minutes of exposition we're about to roll out on
yeah,
you.
we're not really worried about that. Do you guys like how the Fallen looked? Again, I told you, he's not a Transformer. So, I don't know if you saw, I changed my Discord icon to a Bionicle. When I was watching this the entire time, I was like, oh, that's what these motherfuckers look like.
He does look like a Bionicle.
Why is he not a Transformer? Because he just looks like all the other Decepticons. Like, they all have, like, red eyes and just have, like, they're just silver metal things.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
he
and
doesn't
Megatron's
transform.
the most egregious of that.
Doesn't
He doesn't
transform.
transform. Specifically, the creators said the flames and red hotness. He's supposed to be a kiln. He's supposed to be like a furnace of creation and energy. It's because, in my mind, look, in Transformers lore, there's a lot of planet-eating things. Unicron, Jacob said, Orson Welles, we're going to talk about him eventually. Spoilers for, I think, like 5 or 4. But there were these other weird-headed alien things who did make the Transformers called the Quintessons, which are just like oblong, weird-shaped things. I would have to assume that's what they were a reference to. I don't know if you guys saw at the end, actors like Michael York and Robin Atkins Down. So, like...
I know Kevin Michael Richardson was one of
Kevin Michael Richardson was one as well. It just blows
voice.
my mind. Yeah.
Well, here's my question about the Fallen too. So, Optimus rips his face off. He's got like some like biological components underneath. Like
he's got like a brain. Yeah.
But also when they de-spine the cat thing, it has like these green sacs inside it. And I was wondering what that was. Maybe that was how they
The Fallen
biological battery. I don't know.
Yeah.
But on his spaceship, Jacob, the Fallen is like sitting in his little ruin. Megatron busts in and is like, "You old bitch, you know I'm the future," and he's like, "Oh," and they knock over one of those blue pulsating biopods, and out comes not a transformer, but like some sort of metal slug. It's almost like the Matrix, right? You get this idea that without the Allspark, they can't grow their numbers, so they're trying to do something else.
They refer to them. Starscream refers to them as hatchlings. So Transformers are born from eggs.
Boy, Mike, I don't like that. I don't
like
know.
that.
Basically, this movie is just putting together like bits from like Alien, Terminator, The Matrix. They're all kind of just smashing.
And Mortal Kombat Annihilation. We go to the same
And
location.
T2. Michael Bay is, I'm sure, literally, I bet those things are playing in a projector behind him while he's doing cocaine and looking down the barrel of the camera. And he's just like, make it like that!
We're going to do the biggest display. Hey, I was really happy, too, when the Jordanians came to help and immediately crashed their 2 helicopters.
Of course.
You know?
We can't show them confidence. This is America.
But there's plenty of good military porn in this. There's some
of course.
launch,
But I
go,
do think,
go.
Based on everything I've seen, I think Michael Bay really does want to be like James Cameron, but he's just like a very poor man's James Cameron, right?
He's dumb. He is dumb. But when he looks at James Cameron, the same way James Cameron chased John Carpenter. You made a slasher movie. Terminator is going to be mine into that genre. I did work for you on Escape from New York as like an effects guy. I want to be you. Oh, I am you now, except I'm much more commercial and accessible. Michael Bay looks at that and goes, oh, I can be twice as commercial and accessible. But you lose in that the weirdness equation, which is what makes you good and special and unique. And instead it's like, I bet I can make The Rock look the biggest he's ever looked in his life. Like, keep drinking that muscle milk, buddy. And you're like, no!
Because I think, like, James Cameron's, like, biggest strength is that he can make, like, super commercial movies, but they're also, like, he doesn't sacrifice the quality. Like, they're still good movies, and you can appreciate them for more than just, like, forgettable, like, popcorn junk,
The biggest critique people have against him, Jacob, is workman dialogue. That it moves the plot forward because James Cameron's just kind of interested in the movie. He just wants to get you through. But you still get "I'll be back" and the most quotable lines of all time. It would never equate to what Michael Bay is, where he's like, I don't even need that motherfucker. Like, workman dialogue. I'm trying to get dialogue out of this thing. Like, if I can just shoot this thing in slow motion, have a bunch of girls in there, some big robots. Because we haven't talked about this either. That first movie, Shia LaBeouf didn't know what Bumblebee would look like. These things are not on set, guys. It is a 10-foot pole that they put up with a cardboard cutout of what they think the robot's head is going to look like. They put a spotlight on that, and it moves, and they push it at you. Explosions go off, and you kind of hear some music go, rawr, rawr. And you, as an extra, you're like, oh my God, it's Starscream. The idea that you can even act against this, it's kind of amazing. That the fact that this college kid can come in and be like, oh my God, Transformers, this is wild.
Yeah. I guess it's preparing him for the future where, Marvel movies, as much as I like them, so much stuff is just green screen. And I've seen pictures of things that, don't need to be green screen at all. Like I saw a picture of, this is a little off topic, but Samuel L. Jackson in Spider-Man Far From Home, when he's sitting in the hotel room with the tranquilizer dart. He just shot, Peter's friend.
Ned.
I saw a picture where basically he's just sitting in a chair. He has like a prop gun that has markers on it so they can change the gun look. And then behind him, it's green screen. It's like, you're just shooting in a hotel room. Why are you?
No, well, then you got to take Samuel there. We'll send the B unit to shoot the corner of the hotel room and get out.
This thing, it could test the background's not good. It could be like this. Jacob, this is the future.
Right.
Thanos.
I just wonder, actors, how do they act anymore? Because they have nothing to act against. Everything's just green screen. So,
but that's the thing. So Thanos and Groot, Jacob, it's exactly like the Transformers. They have the picture on top of them, but it's an actor walking at you who's like, "I'm this thing. Here's the eye line, but this is me." Yeah. There is no guy who's like, "And I'm Optimus Prime," and the thing is now. The fact that they have greenlit a 6th of these that, past Bumblebee, because Bumblebee didn't even have this. The fact that we have the Mandalorian technology now, Jacob.
The volume.
That they could put screens up. The volume, Mike.
Right.
And I, as Megan Fox, could go, okay, that is at least what I know Bumblebee will sort of be like. There he is. I've got something to do here. That will change the game. The fact that all these Transformer movies are made without this, I have excitement about the future because these ones now are close, and I don't even want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're like pushing us forward in incredible technological advances. They're not. It's just Michael Bay masturbating and making huge explosions and shooting green screen. They didn't do a lot to help cinema.
No,
but they're gonna get cooler.
Yeah, I think the effects were pretty good in this movie overall.
Yeah.
Like they looked believable that they were actually in the world. That's the main thing I kind of look for with like CG things like this, where it's like if it feels like it's not a part of the world, it's definitely noticeable. But like even the scene where Shia is kidnapped and like the thing is like probing in his nose and his mouth and stuff.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the beginning of where it's starting to get excessive, though, because there's a lot of times where we're meeting new Decepticons, and I can't tell who is who, what is what, and that is really...
No.
This is the first time it's showing up, because in the last movie, it's pretty... You could kind of tell. Now there's just so many robots, and it's hard to kind of discern everything, so now we're just getting that noise. So if I wanted to show my actors what anything's going to look like, I'll just stretch out some steel wool, put some googly eyes on it, and say, there's a Decepticon.
There's a lot of Decepticons.
Crunch aluminum.
Yeah, they're just like
some aluminum foil, with some angry eyes on it. Yeah, there you go.
When they drop the Decepticons down in the desert, it's like, who are all these guys? Like, what are their backstories? Doesn't matter.
They don't even get names.
It's crazy that Ray Fisher's cyborg is one of these Transformers that gets his head ripped off by Optimus Prime.
That's true. It's a mess. This one again. I don't know I don't know if they get any better from here.
That's Mike, and so we'll move into final thoughts, but kind of where I want to leave this part is Jacob said he had to walk away 3 times. I paused this maybe 9 times, and it stretched out a 2.5-hour movie easily into 3.5 hours. And I gotta say, the entire time all I was thinking was, we got 3 more of these. Like, and some of these don't even have these characters that I kind of can follow now.
Yeah, I mean, I fell asleep within the first 18 minutes. Like, I missed the dog humping. Like, I tried.
Sure.
You know, I was outside the whole day prior, you know, like enjoying nature and like the world around me. And then I came home and put on Transformers 2, at which point I fell asleep. I did rewind it a couple points that were cool, notably Josh Duhamel throwing a chicken. So I guess we'll get to our last thoughts.
You did have laser eyes at those moments.
Yeah. The absurdity
Yeah, for
of it
me, it
all.
was like, you know, I would sit down and watch it for about 45 minutes, and then I would just kind of be looking at my phone. I'd be looking up and I'd be like, wait, what's happening now? What's going on?
I just
you know,
want
it
to
took
move.
a while to
I
get
feel like
through.
I just got to get up. I got to get
Yeah.
up. And like Mike said, if I see a window, I'm like, oh, what's going on out there?
Yeah, oh.
I would periodically pause it and see like, okay, I got an hour and a half left. Okay, I can do that.
When it hit, the, when
Mike,
it hit
Jacob,
the final battle.
I paused it at 56 minutes, and I'm like, wait, there's an hour and a half left, but I think they're explaining what the matrix of leadership is. We should be getting close here. No,
that's when the movie starts getting good.
We're cooking.
When the final battle started, I paused it, and it's like there are still 45 minutes to go, and we're already fighting in the desert. I couldn't, so.
And I just saw robots' balls.
Yeah, Whew. Good stuff. All right,
Good stuff.
Let's fire that military railgun as we talk our final thoughts on Transformers 2.
How did you know about that? That's
fun.
classified.
You picked the wrong planet. Give me your face. I rise, you fall.
We're back. We're transforming from your hosts, just back into casual fans of Transformers, the franchise, the movies.
disguise.
We talked the sequel. That's right. Revenge of the Fallen. This is Revenge of our podcast, guys.
You know, quickly to jump into these last thoughts here, I guess I'll kind of kick it off. Revenge of the Fallen sounds a lot like Revenge of the Sith, as you guys were saying. A lot of green screen acting in those movies. Maybe George Lucas was kind of breaking ground to maybe not what the trend should be, but what the trend was going to become. This movie, what ground is it breaking? I don't know. But I do think after watching 2 of these, and now that I know there's 3 left, Transformers, in my mind, is without a doubt the worst popular franchise movie series.
Sure.
I would rather watch both Fantastic Beasts than one Transformers film.
Ooh,
You know, I think
Twilight, Mike.
That's a hard one.
I think Twilight would probably be an easier watch than this, but I've never seen Twilight, so that I can't.
They're shorter.
What I've seen though, yeah, like if you look at Fast and the Furious, I'm excited for Fast 9, and there's 8 of those
Oh,
things.
yeah. Fast
Star
and Furious
Wars,
way
it's
better.
a little iffy, but you know they got the classics. Marvel, 20 movies, most of them are pretty good. Transformers is the definitive weakest of any of these, and we got 3 more coming at you.
I
I
think,
mean,
God, Mike.
Popular, conception of the Transformers series is that they all make decent amount of money, but nobody really likes them. They're kind of like the Nickelback of movies,
right?
Yes.
Oddly
Nickelback,
successful.
a best, a very well-selling band, but nobody likes their music.
So
how do
here's
they make money?
you were comparing Colin, Michael Bay to James Cameron, kind of want to do that, and maybe this is Michael Bay's strength. It's like he can just make something terrible that makes money, like something that's it's the biggest. This film is the biggest waste of $200 million I've ever seen as far as coherence and structure, but it made like nearly $1 billion. So yeah, who needs all that other crap if we're going to make our money anyway, which is the studio's dream. We don't even need to make something good and we can make money. Let's go, Michael Bay, you know?
Right.
And that's kind of
But-
the legacy of these, I think, in the end.
And what's amazing is that he can get these movies made, but somehow they're all going to be like 2.5 hours long. They're full of like a bunch of crap that
Music
nobody cares
videos and
about.
stuff.
I'll cut to the military whenever I
Yeah.
can. I've got those contacts.
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, it's just amazing that people, that these actually made so much money.
I don't think I will be, when I'm going to one day potentially have children or, younglings around, nephews, nieces, this is not a franchise I will be sharing with them. You know what I mean?
I don't think so.
I'm not going to watch this again myself after this. I will put these to rest after we're done.
Yeah, we might.
Yeah, so that's my final thought. Like, I am ready to wash my hands of Transformers as we work through them. But Bumblebee, as we've said, is still good. But we're not even halfway there. Hopefully we can cross this new divide. Oh my God, if only.
Yes, and I just wanted to mention that just like the first movie, this movie ends, the credit song, who is it? It's Linkin Park.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So thank you, Linkin Park.
We get some Green Day needle drops. We get a lot of Linkin Park.
Taking Back Sunday is on the soundtrack, capital M-E, so sticking into my emo wheelhouse,
Definitely. Last one had The Used. This one had Taking Back Sunday. I think I heard like 3 different Green Day songs. Very of its time.
Jacob, you kind of just hit maybe the lasting legacy of these films. When I'm an adult, I might buy the soundtracks to the first 2 Transformer movies.
Sure.
At the very least, the first one, the song from the first one, I think is still a pretty good Linkin Park track. Yeah.
What I've done.
Yeah, New Divide doesn't quite slap as hard, but this movie doesn't slap.
And even
either.
by, that's a decent song, but by the first Transformers, Linkin Park was kind of already out of their era where they're good and they're kind of in their post-good era.
And talking about things that I'm not going to miss, namely this franchise, I do get kind of, a little bummed out when I hear some Linkin Park and, even thinking of the old songs, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but then, Chester tragically taking his own life. It's like, man, one step closer to the edge, maybe it's not such a meme, and I get kind of sad when I think about the glory days of Linkin Park and, rest
they
in
had a
peace.
lot of songs about depression and stuff like that. So
looking back, it's, so Transformers might make you feel depressed, so probably avoid them, if you're at risk.
Boy.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, Linkin Park has some good tracks, and it at least reminds me. So that's one good side effect of Transformers. Right. It kind of makes me think about that legacy, and there's a lot of support for mental health coming out of that.
Right, for sure. Some good 2000s alternative and pop punk music. So check those soundtracks out for sure.
You know what? This is a young alternative blockbuster, Jacob. This would be what you would pull out, and you'd be like, "Oh, youth alternative. What does it say? Transformers? Absolutely.
Transformers is
I don't watch that.
It is the new metal franchise.
Yeah, easily. Mm-hmm.
It didn't age well, but it was popular for a time. Transformers. There we go. I'm done. That's all I got for this one.
For my final thoughts, I'll just say, this movie, like I said, going into it, I could not tell you like a single thing about it. And after just finishing it literally earlier today, I could probably, still not tell you very much about it because it kind of goes in one ear and immediately comes out, once you've done watching it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, there were some fun moments within this whole 2.5 hours, maybe an hour of stuff that I was interested in.
That's quite generous.
I can't give it, too much, can't knock it too much. But is this the worst Transformers movie? Maybe. We'll find out next week.
We'll get there.
Possibly.
We have to remember to do rankings. I am super curious how they're all going.
Oh, yeah.
For you guys.
And let me ask you this real quick. So, obviously when we did Star Wars, what do you think of the title? Right? Well, Revenge of the Fallen, Revenge of the Sith, obviously.
Jacob, let me blow your mind here. The biggest quote that Optimus Prime has outside of Autobots roll out, Transformers in disguise, all those dumb catchphrases, in the movie, when he finally, it's the first scene of the film, a huge battle, both sides are coming together, he has to run all the way up a tower, kill, almost like he does in this, a ton of Decepticons, but it's in a lot more of a survival of the fittest sort of sense. Gets up to Megatron and says, finally, one shall rise, or one will stand, one will fall.
Right.
You get this entire feeling. He says the quote in this movie right when he confronts Megatron at the end. I will rise, you will fall. It's like a lot more actiony. You just want to say like, you're so close, Michael Bay. You're so close. But this guy's name is the Fallen. That's what you took. I hate it.
If only they had a writer.
You picked the.
Well, they had Robert Orsi. You know, he does great work. So.
Yeah, our favorite.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I think Alex Kurtzman and Robert Orsi, everything they're attached to usually sucks. So they're kind of my most hated enemy.
Pariahs of.
No, imagine at this point,
structure.
guys in their 50s who must open a book that says paint by number scripts and just go, you know, where do we put the MacGuffin? Where do we put this? Here's what I'll say. Final thoughts from me on this film. This is a movie that does not care about itself. And if Mike did not say that thing about it not having a script, you would guess that, because the final scene of the movie is everything wraps up, and then the credits hit, and then it cuts back to a scene of him at college, because they go, right, that was Shia LaBeouf's story, though, is that he does have to go to college, so we kind of do have to wrap that up, too. It's not interested in that. Not interested in anything. It really is mini vignettes where people arrive in really weird locations and look up and go, are you telling me this? And something that they're not seeing is going, by the power of the All-Father. You know, just like saying like the craziest thing that you could ever imagine. You get that energy in this movie. I set it up top. I'm going to hold it in higher regard now because I do think there was someone there who was like, well, actually, the Transformer fans might enjoy if you did this. And Michael Bay, as much as he was saying shut up to that nerd, as he was just like pushing him down, I cannot help but think some of it rubbed off on him. And when he went back, he was like, well, it would be kind of cool if we did this or if we did that.
Well, and we see later, right? I don't know if he's done it yet, but he puts together like writers' rooms just to like fill out the lore of the Transformers and the backstory. So I guess he cares a little bit.
But I don't think there should be this emphasis on heavy lore. If you're not going to do that, I said it last week. I don't mean to be mean. Some things just aren't worth pretending that we're all going to be into them. To make them more commercial commodities, sacrifices do have to be made. I don't think there's a huge weighty theme at the core of Transformers that makes it worth going, well, actually, we have to get all the characters right because Ironhide, I really see a lot of myself in him. You know, like nobody is doing that. Nobody is making it with that intent. It's never going to be that way of, well, but at its core, Captain America, he's just a kid from Brooklyn. That's something somebody can relate to. You know, that's something someone out there is going to be able to grab onto. That's not what this is.
None of the Autobots or Decepticons have really any character. Like Optimus Prime, his character is that he's the leader. Bumblebee has maybe the most character, and he's just like
your characters that you interact with the humans. His pet, Jacob, that is perfect. And Bumblebee, you are, of course, the dog. And it's like, I am? I mean, it's like, it's... But, again, it would be one thing if we were cutting back and forth between, you know, the Decepticons planning something, the Autobots planning something, and them coming together. You never really get stuff like that. Josh Duhamel's entire role in this film is, actually, I'm the translator for the Autobots, so if you want to talk to them, you talk to me. And I always think of this thing, you know, of executives being like, we got to have a person to anchor onto. We got a person to be the character. Mike, a movie we watched growing up, Final Fantasy: The Spirit Within, a completely CG, made up, you know, not real movie. You could do that. You could have a whole movie where the only characters are Transformers. I promise you could do that. The budget would be crazy. It would. But you could figure it out somehow, even if it was just like 3 Transformers who were against each other or whatever, you know? But they could be characters. We're never going to get that with these movies. That is going to ultimately be the reason that they are not good, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Cars. They have character. Just make them transform. Do a CG. We're done.
Mike, it's Cars. It's Cars. And we just fixed it. We actually thought we fixed it with Fast and Furious last week, but this franchise is actually Cars. And that is what Cars 5 should be about. Actually, I do want to say final thought about Fast and the Furious. Tyrese says in this, if God made us in his image, what do you think made them? Kind of an ominous setup or whatever.
A car.
If Tyrese after that, well, yeah, exactly, a giant battery, I would assume. If he had right after that said, anyways, I got to go see my family, and then gotten in a Ferrari and driven off, that would have made this movie a 10 out of 10.
That's what they should have done. Because also, by this point, like in 2009, aren't the Fast and the Furious,
I think he's making them. He's at least done 2. Yeah, at least.
Well, he was in Too Fast, Too Furious, and then he wasn't. But I think 4 on is when they started doing like the connected universe. Like these guys are all friends.
They're all back. Yeah.
All family. Yeah, and
Josh Duhamel, if he comes in as the next one and he's like, actually, that's Colonel Thunder, whatever, and he's fought Transformers, and that's all he said, I would be like, awesome.
Yeah, well, we know that the reason we didn't see John Cena is because he was on super secret blackout clearance during the Bumblebee arc. And now he's back to stop Dom.
I think, Bumblebee was set in the 80s or whatever, so maybe that's Dom and John Cena's dad that looks exactly
my God.
like John Cena.
And that's the reason he's not in their life anymore. I can't trust you behind a car, Dom. A car did a really weird thing to me one time. It was actually an alien from outer space.
Damn. So one loves cars and one hates cars.
We've made it.
We did it.
Fast. What would it be? It would be, I can't figure out the name coming together.
Transfurious.
The former
Transfurious.
Mike.
I see it now. Like there's an import.
Who needs a writer's strike?
Turns into a transformer, and then
absolutely.
Dom is like, I always preferred good old American muscle, and then he's got.
I don't need none of that Cybertron. Wow. Yes, Mike. Transfurious. It comes in. There's an engine block behind it, and then slowly the Autobot signal comes up too behind it, and it's all meshed together, whatever, coming 2023.
Well, I got the opening scene here, too. It opens, with Dom, in the shop. The tow truck pulls up, and it drops off this junker yellow Camaro with a stripe on it,
Yes.
And it's like, okay, let's go. We're off to the metaphorical races. So
a CG Bernie Mac is behind the wheel. He says, I ain't got no need for this car no more. Dom says, you got it, brother.
That's right.
Tyrese, when he sees one for the first time,
I need a 10-second robot.
Oh, man. I've seen these things before.
Transformers? That takes me back 10 years ago, 12 years ago when I was in the desert.
I got a specialist. Like, let me call him. Josh Duhamel shows up. Throws a chicken.
Are you kidding?
Oh my gosh.
We've done it.
Transfurious.
Make the greatest movie ever made.
It'll make $5 billion internationally.
It's happening. It's ours. And no one can take it from us. It doesn't matter that Universal and DreamWorks Paramount are different companies. We will get them to come together for this.
If there's one thing they like more than arguing, it's making money.
Yeah, that's the money, man. That's a handshake.
Disney can work together. Yeah, anything is possible.
Well, that sounds a lot more interesting than what we're going to be covering next week, which is Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Please join us as we continue to torture ourselves.
We hope you are suffering. You better be. Tweet watching these movies. Yeah. Again, they are impossible to find right now. They are not on any streaming service.
I am out of pocket for these.
Yes.
Same. $3.99 each on Amazon.
It's rough
Prime.
out here.
It's rough.
Paying $4 to watch a movie that is terrible and waste 2 hours of my time. Great.
2 hours 40.
And it
Don't
just
undersell
goes
it.
to Michael Bay getting cocaine. That money goes straight to his drug dealer, Jacob. It goes to his account.
Yeah.
Direct deposit. Amazon payout.
All right.
Yep. I think that's going to do it.
We did it. Let's roll out. Normies, what you're going to want to do instead of that is, of course, hit up our social media at normies_like_us. Let us know. Say, hey, I'm following along transfor-may. I loved it. I had those things too. The combiners were the coolest. Why didn't my toy have balls? We don't know, but we do want to hear from you. And, you can always let us know suggestion-wise what other stuff you want us to cover when we get out of this. We got other stuff coming up, other cool things we're going to cover.
Yeah. And it's going to be hopefully a good time. I mean, we'll have fun talking about these as we do. They might not be the greatest films of all time, but we're going to have a good time chatting and bringing you these episodes. So
I know when Mojo shows up that I'm going to be like, my 2 buddies later, I get to talk about this little chihuahua that we all love.
I'm going to be on chicken watch for the rest of these films.
Yes,
so
of course.
Yeah.
Stay tuned
if
for that.
Mojo isn't in the next movie, we riot.
And we know that Wheelie does he is in pretty much all of the rest of them.
Yes.
So
Is he?
we have that to look forward
Yes.
to.
That's amazing.
Get ready. Big
Hope he
character,
humps someone's
Tom
leg.
Kenny.
That's right.
SpongeBob.
That's right. So yeah, buckle up.
right.
Car metaphor.
Buckle up.
Catch you next time.
Right,
Signal all
let's
turns.
Roll. Give
Let's
me your
roll.
face.
All right. With your host, I'll just go out of order. Mike Flap.
This is Normie Prime. Give me your face.
Ooh, Decepticon, and I gotta fight this Prime right here. Hiya! You picked the wrong planet. Oh
You
no,
fall.
Jacob decapitated me.
I rise.